Turn this guy off.
Is it plugged in? There's no
Yes, plugged in. Hopefully we got all the technicals taken care of. Okay, the title for tonight's lesson, lesson 3 of our course, is Sync or Sync. Spelled differently, sync as in S-Y-N-C, or sync, S-I-N-K. Okay, I think it's a great title because really that really sums up what this class is going to be about. But obviously, since you don't know what the class is about yet, that title doesn't mean that much to you. So let's pick up where we are holding. Now, if you remember lesson 1, I described this journey that we're going to be going through over this course, as each lesson is really another private audience with the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, Reb Shneir Zalman. And it's the Tanya is, like we described, as this process of I implement step 1, I come back and I'm left with problems after implementing step 1. So I come for further advice and I get step 2. And where we're holding is last week we came to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe gave us advice, and we're scheduled another audience with him. So why do we schedule another audience with him? Because we want to drive him crazy, because we want to ask questions, because for the sake of asking questions, or because we went home, we applied what we learned last week. We applied that second audience, and we're left with difficulties, we're left with challenges, and therefore this third audience is going to be addressing, after we've experienced last audience, now how do we deal with the next step, the challenges we encountered since implementing last week's audience. Okay, if that's the case, we have to summarize where are we up to. So in lesson 1, can someone help me, or can all of you help? Lesson 1, what did we discuss?
2 souls.
2 souls. Good. Beautiful. And remember the language, what the soul's called? Animal soul, godly soul. Then we spoke about the anatomy of the soul. The soul is made up of 10 faculties. What are those faculties called? How does it split?
Thoughts, emotions, and efforts.
The soul itself, the personality. 3 intellectual, our ideas, our ideas, and 7 of the emotions. Right. 10 faculties. Then we spoke about, that's the anatomy of the makeup of the soul itself, how the soul expresses itself. Those are the garments of the soul, and those are altogether thoughts, speech, and action. Lesson 1, we got the lexicon down, we got familiar with ourselves, and we became aware of the nature of our inner conflict. Right? We discovered we have 2 souls and two sets of insides and 1 set of outsides. How is this? That's the conflict. What's gonna express? We moved on to lesson 2. In lesson 2, we learned a tool for managing this conflict. Anyone remember what that tool is? Someone help me. What's the tool? What was our homework last week? But before we get to our homework, what was the tool we learned last week?
To apply the godly soul when the challenges come into our mind.
Okay, to apply the godly soul?
To try and think of a more pure way of kindness and connection to God.
Okay.
When we're faced with challenges.
Good. So you're going specific, even more general. We learned about a specific natural ability that all of us have naturally. What's that called? Anyone? Did you guys freeze, or
we did like a meditation in a way. We just closed our eyes, paused, took a breath.
Good. What were we practicing in that meditation? Are you hearing us okay, ladies on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah? You want to turn up the volume?
Yeah.
Turn up?
In that
on the
meditation,
keyboard,
we
you see it.
didn't leave space for non-godly thoughts to come through.
Yafeh. Leave. It's not okay. So good. If you remember the term, anyone remember the term impulse control? You remember that? Yeah, that's term rings a bell. The term of mind rules the heart and utilizing our ability to control our impulses, to control our thought, speech, and action.
Stay conscious with the inner battle.
Good. So a natural ability we all have is to control our impulses. And therefore we describe that the fact that I have impulses, which are coming from my animal soul, and does that mean that they need to express themselves through our garments in our thought, speech, and action? We said no. The tool we discovered last week, which the Alter Rebbe taught us, was the tool that we all naturally possess, the tool of impulse control. Controlling your thoughts and speech and action. You can be a perfect person on the outside, a behavioral perfection. We discussed the three personas, remember, who manage the conflict. It's important. We're going to go over this just because it's super important before we go forward. The tzaddik, what defines the tzaddik? Anyone remember?
He doesn't have a conflict. He only has a godly soul.
No conflict, right? His insides and his outsides are perfectly in sync. Why? Because his outsides are expressing who he is and what he wants to be are perfectly in sync. Why? Because he doesn't have any conflict whatsoever. However, when it comes to, we spoke about the Rosh, we wanted to focus on the Beinoni. The Beinoni is this person who we can all be, and it's with all in our ability using the tool that we learned last week, which is we can all attain perfect outsides. Even though we've got that conflict, we can manage that conflict. Managing the conflict means all the time we're managing our outsides. We're managing what we allow to express. We're managing our thoughts, we're managing our speech, and we're managing our actions. Is that within our ability to manage our thoughts, speech, and actions? Anyone thinks it's not in your ability to manage your thoughts, speech, and actions?
To manage thoughts is very hard because, first of all, you need to be aware of the thought.
Okay, good.
You shouldn't be caught up in the thought. You need to, understand that it's there, see it.
Good. So sometimes we don't even subconsciously we're thinking, we don't even realize we're thinking. So that's where we spoke last week. Remember, Georgia actually asked that about the idea of impulsive thinking and then the process of now, okay, so I've got a thought in my head, but at that point you haven't yet, I haven't made the decision or not made the decision to control my impulses. The moment where I consciously decide I am going to think about this now, I'm going to unpack this, I'm going to focus on an idea, and I have the choice to either do that or not do that. That's the point we're talking about. Controlling your thought and saying, okay, just because I'm inclined to start thinking negatively right now, I'm thinking selfishly right now, I'm not going to let my thoughts go that way. I stop right there. Yeah? Okay. Remember the 2-minute exercise we did?
Mm-hmm.
So what did we practice? Exactly that, right? We took a minute, or 1 minute, what was it? And thought about a Torah idea, whilst we pushed away any thoughts which were foreign thoughts. Even if there was an impulsive thought, we didn't focus on it. We all managed that 1 2-minute exercise. I don't remember, was it 1 or 2 minutes? 1 minute. 2 minutes is a little asking too much. Okay, if I remember correctly, we finished off last week. His homework was to try be a Beinoni during the week. Try manage your thought, speech, and action during the week. And even if you're feeling whatever you're feeling, the moment, who managed? Did anyone give it a shot?
Yes.
You did? Were you 100% successful?
I was 100% successful, but I was definitely successful.
You found success. Okay. Anyone else?
It's definitely tried, but the percentage of success wasn't 100.
Wasn't 100. Okay, so let me ask you a very simple question. Last week we sat together in class. We learned together. And Manat, you guys I think was 100% success. Everyone more or less managed. So how come you went home, you tried to do the same thing, and over the course of the week, you didn't manage. You managed a little bit. What happened? What? Does impulse control work? Can you control your impulses? Yes or no?
Yes, but sometimes it's not impulse. Sometimes you need to take a more important decision, and it's difficult to take it according to godly soul. Because for some reason you dislike some person, or I don't know. And instead of welcoming, you want to push away, and
Okay.
and it's not
Excellent.
an impulse. So impulse
It's not
easier to control than this more serious.
So I don't know if the right term is impulse. Let's use it. Can I control my behavior?
Yes.
You can. So I don't want to be nice to that person because I don't like that person. But can I be nice? Yes or no?
For one day, yes.
Can you be nice all the time?
Depends how close this person is. If this person stays at my place for more than one day, I don't know. For one day,
You're being very honest. Okay. So you're saying it gets harder and harder.
Yes.
Okay. I think what Lubov is, you're nailing the point here. The point is ultimately what we've discovered. We discovered after last week was I've got some rubber bands here just to demonstrate. Okay, we discovered there's two sides to us. Okay, so on this side, this is my inside. So this is the side that's closer to me. That's my insides. The side that's closer to you, that's my outsides. Okay. And we discussed last week that my insides can be, I don't like someone. My insides can be, I just want to put up my feet and not pray. My insides can be, I want to just be selfish right now and not care about someone else and make space for them, or really be bothered about anyone. Just curl up and forget. And yet, we spoke last week, the Alter Rebbe teaches us a tool. That tool is called Ma'ech Shalit Al Alev. The mind controls the heart. We have the ability to control our behaviors. Yes? Just to point out, if someone doesn't have the ability to control his behavior, if someone cannot control their behavior, they need to see a doctor. They're someone who's not in control of their behavior. That's something. There's conditions such situations. That's not you can see your rabbi, but you need to actually see a doctor who can help you. Behaviors are something which is in with our control. Hard, yes, but we can absolutely control our behaviors. And we spoke about the Bailey is the person he's mastered that ability to control his outsides. Yeah. However, what we discovered, and I think this is what you're referring to, Lubov, if my insides stay here and I don't like someone, and I'm forcing myself the whole time. So one day I'll force my outsides. Okay, it's going. I'm completely in control of my behavior. And the next day I'm forcing it. It's getting harder, and it's getting harder, and it's getting harder. And I'm going to be in control. But if my insides have they moved? We spoke about the animal soul remains in the same place. You're not working on your outside, inside. You're working on your outside. That's what we spoke about last time. We're working on behavioral perfection. I'm working on being self-master in the place of behavior. Look what's happening to me. I'm getting really tensed up. I'm getting really stretched out, literally, right? Who wants to live in this kind of state of completely being in this, constantly forcing myself to do something which is completely not something that I want to be doing inside? Yes, I can force myself to do it, but it becomes so hard and becomes. You ever met someone who's living a life that they're constantly forcing themselves to do something they don't want to be doing? You know, some people in work, you've seen those guys in work, you walk past and you could just tell they do not want to be there. They're there, but they don't want to be there. Oh, yeah. Okay, right? And it's hard, but we can do it. We can force ourselves to get out of bed and go there. Sometimes, you want to know something? Sometimes there's religious people, that's their religious experience, where Their insides are in a completely different world, but they're ticking the boxes and they're doing all the things they need to do on the religious level, but they're not enjoying it and they're miserable. And so really, I think so what's going to happen? If this is going to carry on this way, my insides stay here, my outside, what's going to happen?
You're gonna snap.
At some point, you're going to snap. You're just going to drop
Somebody's
all
gonna
that
get-
impulse
somebody's
control
gonna
and say, somebody's going to get, exactly. I'll have a breakdown. Or I'm just going to say, forget it. I'm dropping self-control. I'm having a holiday where I'm just going crazy. And you hear about these people who crash. That's it. You know, the guys with these really high-strung gloves. And then at some point, they're like, or the other option is you've been miserable. So you live this life and you're miserable. Either you snap or you're miserable. Doesn't sound like a lovely kind of experience, right? In summary, what we're doing the whole time is in action, we're expressing our godly soul. But internally, our animal soul is raging, and it's not exactly, we're not allowing it to be expressed the whole time. We're constantly repressing, and it just feels like we're forcing ourselves to do something sometimes we're not interested in doing. Not a lovely experience. So, this is the problem we come to. This is the problem we approach the Alter Rebbe with this week in our audience. When we say, Rebbe, we can't do this. You taught us a tool. Does the tool work? Absolutely, the tool works. But it's untenable. We can't live a life where my insides are what they are, and I haven't changed them one bit, and my outsides, I'm completely living a life of behavioral perfection. It's untenable. Something's going to give. I'm going to be miserable. It's just not possible. And this is where the title of the class is. You either got to sink or you're going to sink. You're going to somehow sink your insides and your outsides. You're going to bring your insides on board to your outside experience, to your behaviors, or you're going to sink. And it's really about, in order for this to work, in order for this process, these tools that we learned last week to really work, the behavior, for us to be in a place where we're self-mastered, a place of action, we have to develop an emotional congruity between our insides and our outsides. Now, just remind me a second. Who is the guy who has emotional congruity between his insides and his outsides? He's the tzaddik. The tzaddik is the guy who's completely his insides, his outsides are a complete reflection of his insides. So we're saying that we're supposed to become a tzaddik now? Yeah? Yeah, his actions are completely reflexive of what's going on inside. We discard ourselves and say, no, we're never going to get rid of those impulses. We're never going to get rid of that animal soul. It's always going to control your outside. That's 100% in your control. That's what we spoke about. So we're not talking about here sinking our insides 100% with our outsides. What we're going to learn tonight is that ultimately, in order for last week, what we learned to work, we don't have the luxury of not working on our insides at all. We need to create some harmony between our insides and our outsides. And if we want to say last week in the previous lessons, we learned you could do something even if you don't feel like it. Tonight, we're going to learn how we can begin to feel like it. Okay? So far, so good? Okay. What are we covering tonight? We finished off last week, chapter 15 of Tanya. Tonight, we're going through chapters 16 till 25. And this is we're going to discover two ways, okay? How we've got this conflict in us, we've got the animal soul, we've got the godly soul, how we can bring our insides on board somewhat with our outsides. So it shouldn't feel like we're constantly forcing ourselves to do something which we don't feel inside. Two ways are going to be discussed in Tanya for doing this. First way, chapter 16 and 17. That's going to be the long way. The long way of doing it. Chapters 18 through 25 is going to be the short way. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, that's a short way. Does that sound right? Yes. We're not talking about the long way to the long way. It's easy to describe, but it's long to apply. It's a process to apply. We're going to describe, the Alter Rebbe is going to give us a way to bring ourselves on board to a place where we want to express ourselves externally, where we want our actions to be, and we want to bring our inner side on board. But it's a long journey. It's a difficult journey to apply. And that's what's called the long way. Easy to describe, but not so easy to apply. Or maybe more of a process to apply. Okay? Then, chapters 18 to 25 describes a process which is much more in the here and now. You can apply it right here, right now, but it's difficult it's more challenging to explain. We have to bring ourselves there to that place to explain it, and that's why the Alter Rebbe goes through those chapters. And in a certain sense, I would say chapters 18 to 25 is a lot of deep mystical ideas that are unpacked in those chapters, which we're obviously going to go through them very kind of bird's eye view kind of thing of it. But through it, we're going to get the idea, and it's going to take us more time to get there. But once we've got it, we'll realize that it's something that we can apply every day kind of thing immediately. Okay? So again, let's just summarize again. Where are we going? We're going to the place where we've come to a problem. And I'm just summarizing this one. Come to a problem. We've recognized I want to be completely in control. I can be completely in control. However, to expect us to keep that up in the long term is not really possible because of my outsides. If they're completely not in sync with my insides, there's a limit how much I can force myself to do something that I don't appreciate and I'm not interested in doing. Therefore, the purpose of tonight's lesson is the Alter Rebbe is going to bring us to a place that our insides can start to sync and synchronize with our outsides. So that therefore, we're not forcing ourselves, we're actually on board towards this place called self-control in our behaviors. Seda? Yeah? Okay. Long way. Long way is we're not even yet getting the student book yet. This page 46 really is the long way. Long way brings us to something which is called which is all about pointed thoughts. We call it meditation. Now, we're going to maybe just put that term now, meditation, on the side. Let's use our thoughts. And the point of using our thoughts is we're going to use our thoughts to generate feeling. Feelings. Now, just want us to realize how we're actually doing this the whole time. We don't necessarily think about it like that. We are constantly thinking and generating feelings. Think about, when you think about your workplace and you're thinking about how it's an environment which is toxic, it's an environment and you're constantly thinking that, and it's like that's the meditation in your head. And what are the feelings we develop? Straight away, I could start feeling tense. I could start feeling my back tensing up. I could start feeling ill even. I could start losing my appetite because of that I'm feeling that apprehension and anxiety. We could do the same thing the other way around too. where we start thinking about someone who's coming to visit us, and we start fantasizing about, wow, someone's coming, and we're so excited, and like we develop this like lifts us up, and we start feeling all pumped up, right? No,
Or the opposite.
more the times the opposite. Think about something that's interesting, which would be resentment. Resentment is an amazing thing. What does actually resentment mean?
Resentment.
Resentment, which means
Rethinking about it, feeling it again.
feeling it again. It's an
It's already
amazing
happened
thing.
from the past.
Correct. So someone hurt us, and what do we start doing? We start thinking about how they hurt us. Remember that person? And in our head, we start, I'm going to see that person again, and we start like thinking through the whole event again, and suddenly we start feeling that hurt. We literally feel that pain all over again, that person hurt us. That's resentment. What are we doing? We're using our minds, where our thoughts are creating feelings. Now, the reality is, the more we think about something, the more we're going to feel it. And if that's the case, the long way says a very simple thing. If you think about God a little bit more, and if you can take a few minutes a day to think about God, well, maybe you'll have a little bit more feelings towards God. Now, that's the summary of the long way. The short way is not going to be creating new feelings. The short way is going to be tapping into latent existing feelings. What are we talking about? We're going to describe that within each of us, instinctively, because of the fact we have a godly soul, it's almost like imprinted in our DNA, certain feelings. Now, those feelings aren't revealed often. We don't necessarily experience those feelings on a regular basis, but if we can learn to trigger those feelings, then we can use those for internal motivation. We're not creating new feelings. We're tapping into feelings that exist within us already, and we're learning to turn them on.
This is the second.
That's the short way. That's the short way. We're not creating new feelings. We're touching into feelings already. Okay? And through these two ways, whether it's the long way or the short way, what is the goal of both of these ways? Once again, it's to bring our insights, to bring our personalities on board towards this place where we're looking to bring our outsides, where our behaviors are holding. Our behaviors are a place where we're thinking the right thoughts, we're behaving right, we're speaking right, but we're not there, we're not feeling there. The long and short way are saying, how can you bring yourself to the place where you're actually also feeling some of that? So you're not going against yourself, you're not forcing yourself always. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Long way. Let's take a look, page 47, text 1. Adam, you want to read for us?
Sure. Text 1. The important principle regarding the divine service of the Benini is to govern and rule the animal nature by intellectually contemplating the greatness of the infinite, so as to create through understanding a spirit of knowledge and awe of God in his mind, which will cause him to turn away from evil. And the love of God in his heart will cause him to cleave to him by fulfilling the precepts of the Torah. Time to page chapter 16.
Okay. Chapter 16, like we said, it's about contemplating the greatness of the infinite. And through that understanding, you're going to develop love and fear of God. Now, what are we talking about? So, in simple terms, what we're talking about is like this. If you think, you will develop feelings. So if you take 5 minutes a day, and you say, you know what, I'm going to think about the beautiful things in my life that God's given me. I'm going to think about how I see God in my life in the events that take place. I can see that God's directing me. and he's holding my hand. I take 5 minutes to think about maybe the vastness and the incredible universe that he created, and what will that do? You think you're gonna have a fiery love for God suddenly?
It depends.
Depends.
It depends.
5 minutes. Do you think
I
you're
have
gonna
a
get there?
cat, I see my cat and how beautiful she is. It's difficult not to feel that.
Okay. So you're saying something will happen. Good. Something will, you'll definitely feel something. And let's take a look at text 2, because it brings out to us what's your expectation? Don't start thinking you're gonna start being a fiery person who's going to love God and fear God. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. Nathaniel, go for it.
Furthermore, one must know an additional important principle in the economic service of God. Even if one's intellect and understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart,
So we're talking about you can, even if you're not capable of producing a fiery love and fear of God. Who is the guy who has this fiery love and fear of God? The son. You got an animal soul. Manage your expectations. You will not expect, you're not going to necessarily have this, maybe you'll have certain moments of inspiration, on a regular basis, you won't get. But nevertheless, so what can you expect? Go for it. As long
even
as
if
he
one's
right?
understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart, as long as he comprehends the greatness of the infinite, this is completely acceptable. So it is the appreciation that leads him to engage in the Torah and Mitzvah.
It is this appreciation which we're looking to create an appreciation. We're looking to create a situation where my insides are more consistent with my outsides, where I'm going to do something selfless and I'm feeling that a little bit. Why am I feeling that a little bit? Because I'm appreciating that God created me and he put me in this world for a purpose, and right now I can do that. And I have a chance to do a mitzvah, and I'm going to light Shabbos candles, and instead of feeling like, oh shoot, I gotta leave work now and go home and light Shabbos candles, or mess all my meetings, whatever it is, which maybe will last 2-3 weeks. We're talking about bringing yourself to a place where I appreciate that this is something really beautiful, and therefore I'm not fighting my insides every time I do this action, or whatever the mitzvah is, whether it's interpersonal between people, whether it's between me and God, whatever it is, I am using my ability to contemplate, my ability to think, to create some kind of internal appreciation for what I'm doing externally. Anyone think is this asking a lot for you? Possible? Definitely possible. Just let's bring it even home. Let's talk. The World Cup's going on right now, right? Who cares about the World Cup? Maybe who doesn't care about it?
Unfortunately, Giorgio is not here. He would have definitely enjoyed this part.
Okay, so I take it that not everyone around the table is very fired up about the World Cup.
No.
That might be all right.
Okay, fine, especially since we have an American, Russian, it's definitely for the English team at least. Okay, so let's say you decide, I don't really care about it, but every day, from a month before the World Cup, you made sure to buy the paper and read up about all the English teams' preparations. By the way, it's a game going on right now, I imagine. England is playing, right? Wales. Okay. So we gotta pray for them. Yeah. While I read up in the paper about the English team and how they're preparing and I do that every day for 10 minutes. I'm reading about the English team, and comes the World Cup. What's the chances that when I hear England has won a game, I'll feel something? I'll feel something. I don't care about the World Cup. I don't care about the playing, but we are hardwired in such a way that our mind, our thoughts impact our feelings. That's how we are hardwired. If we think about something, we're going to have some kind of feeling towards it.
You're invested in it.
You're invested in it. Yeah,
Emotions, not
yeah,
feelings.
correct. Why you emotion? Because your thoughts create an emotional investment, create some kind of emotional attachment to it. Correct. Attachment. There's some kind of creates an emotional attachment. The very fact that you're thinking about it. And if you're going to spend 5 minutes a day thinking about things where we're trying to bring ourselves to a place where our godly soul is expressing itself more, 5 minutes a day, and that's what we're thinking, we're going to start feeling that a little bit more. And the battle of fighting against ourselves is going to be decreased somewhat because we appreciate it. I'm going to feel that when I'm stopping in the morning and I'm laying my tefillin before I'm running out, it's not just because I made some commitment once in my life and I have to force myself. Yes, there will be those days, but I'll appreciate that this is something beautiful and my relationship with God is worth those 5 minutes. There will be some kind of that appreciation. Okay. So if we want to summarize the first way, I think it's pretty clear. We're talking about the long way. Why is it the long way? Sorry. Why is it the long way? It's the long way because thoughts of this kind, creating feelings, is something that happens over a course of time. With time, the more you think, the more feelings you generate. If I'm right now facing a challenge and I'm not interested in right now, and I'm going to start meditating, meditation is something which, with many years and with doing it constantly, you're going to change your feelings about something. But if you're not doing it constantly, and if you could think positive thoughts for, you're going to definitely change how you feel. But if you're going to stop doing that, guess what? A lot of that effect can go out the window, as we all know, right? So that's why I think even using the term meditation is a little bit strong here. Meditation, straight away we think of meditation, that's like the incense is burning and you're like sitting on the pillow. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about very practical thinking. Thinking, using our minds to generate feelings towards the place we want to be internally. Just as a cute story that's bringing out the power of our thoughts. The guy who's going to his neighbor, his wife says, I'm cooking, I need some sugar. I ran out of sugar. You mind going to the neighbor and asking for sugar? So he leaves the house and he walks out. He's like, yeah, okay. My neighbor, we're friendly. I'm sure if I go and as he's walking, he's like, hold on a second. Maybe the neighbor's going to tell me that they're not interested in giving me sugar. And he says, but why would the neighbor do that? Like, it's just sugar. But maybe the neighbor is going to just be nasty. And he starts like, what kind of animal would the neighbor be to be nasty and not giving sugar? And he's like having this whole conversation. And eventually he rings the bell of the neighbor. The neighbor says, yeah, I can help you. He's like, you know what? Keep your sugar. The guy's like, what are you talking about? Where did this all happen? An internal conversation. All that emotion, where did it come from? It's extremely powerful. What goes on in our head is the feelings we're going to create. And that's the first thing. In order for us to develop feelings, to bring up our insides, to match our insides with our outsides, we're going to have to think positive thoughts, which are going to be in sync with the way we want to behave. We want to express our godly soul. We need to think thoughts which are going to bring us that place. But it's a process. So it's a process because that takes, it's a commitment for life. I'm saying, obviously, in the fullest sense. It's a process. It's a slow working thing. Till we develop this, takes focus. Yes, and it takes time to develop appreciation, right? Okay, so we kind of need something, which is right now. I'm not exactly feeling all that appreciation. I'm kind of ready to just cave in, give up all my self-control, and eat that, I don't know, that McDonald's sandwich even though I've promised myself I'm eating kosher from now on, or whatever it is. And we all know our challenges, where our animal soul is ready to take over. And we need something to tell it quickly. Okay. This is where the short way comes in. Now, okay, so let's go back to, in order to understand the short way, let's go back to our analogy of the soccer, yeah, the English team. Okay, so in this case, I'll say even less. You know what? I really don't care about it, and I really don't care that the World Cup's going. But can't avoid it. I'm saying every time, imagine England's getting to the finals. Okay, imagine, and every time I go anywhere, I just feel England won, England, and people are thinking so. And I go to the shops and I'm getting, and there was a game, and I was actually sitting here the other day, and our neighbors are Spanish, and Spain was playing Germany, I think, and they were like cheering, and all of a sudden, I said, Shane, I'm sure Germany just scored. Right? So I'm not even looking for it. I'm not even thinking about it. But
It's there.
it's there. And then England wins the World Cup. What's the chances that I'll have felt something? Okay. Probably something. Why? Because just the very fact that hearing it all around me and everything, at some point I start identifying. I identify with those people who I've kind of keep on giving me that buzz around it. Okay. We all have encountered a scenario. Let me give you a scenario. Some friends invite us over. Come with us. Let's go out to the restaurant Friday night. Not to the restaurant, but in the restaurant, non-kosher restaurant Friday night. Now, you're Jewish. Friday night, non-kosher. Okay. But I go out. It doesn't bother me. I'm not. I'm gonna go out to the restaurant, even though it's Friday night, sitting in the middle of dinner. And the husband has a drink. And next thing I know, he's cracking a joke. He's telling a joke about Jews. An anti-Semitic joke. Look at him. Say to my wife, that says, we're out of here. Just like, oh, what's the problem? He just said an anti-Semitic joke. These are not our friends. We are not going out with them anymore. We are leaving this restaurant right now. We're talking to these people again. Like, that's it. I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish, and I will not tolerate people talking about Jews in that kind of way. Anyone relate to the son of one way or another this kind of experience playing out? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Let me ask you something. When this fellow went to the restaurant on Friday night, and he's eating in a non-kosher restaurant, what happened to the fact that he's Jewish in that context? How come his Jewishness woke up when it came to his friend making this anti-Semitic remark and joke about it? What happened? What was going on there? No? Anyone?
His ego got ahead of him.
Huh?
His ego got involved, and he was able to be that was going to prompt him to identify with Judaism and he already left other parts of it behind.
So you would say it's ego,
I think we all have,
It's his pride.
his pride. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
I think we all have our limits, our line in the sand. I'm willing to go that far, but not this far.
Maybe when you showed the example with the string,
Mhm.
you can pull it one side, but you can also pull it on the other side. He already didn't do Shabbat, and then when he pulled even a bit more by hearing this joke, it went on the other side.
It's an inside side.
Yes.
So you're saying it touched him at a deep place in a certain sense. Something about this was like you were saying, this was the point at which he decided my Jewish identity touches me here. And maybe I don't express my Jewish identity in a place of Shabbos, maybe I don't express, but this is the point. Don't go there. That's who I am. That's something deep. You've just pushed the wrong buttons in terms of who I am. I'm not going to accept it. Absolutely right. I think you probably all heard about these stories of the mother who discovers like there was the car ran over a child. It's real stuff, and she gets like this adrenaline thing, discovers that the car is actually on the child, she's actually able to pick up the car. You ever heard of something?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's going on there? Let's say I'm saying, so you read the statement in the paper, and then you call up the mother and you say, I heard yesterday the car was on top of your child and you lifted the car, and we have a bunch of stuff in the garage which I really need someone really strong. Will you mind coming over and helping schlep it? First of all, get out of here. Second of all, you think she's going to be able to do it? No, probably not. So what happened here? What happened here is she was able to do it because her child was pinned underneath the car. She had this enormous, touched her so deeply that it brought up such enormous strength. And the short way that we're focusing on here from Alter Rebbe, you can call it almost like a spiritual adrenaline rush. What are we talking about? We're talking about we all have experienced situations where our identity is threatened. Now, throughout Jewish history, Jews, even not religious Jews, have reached that point when someone said, either you give up, either you basically say you're cut your connection off with your identity, Jewish identity, or you're getting killed. And time again, Jews have said, kill us. They say to us, do or die, and we're ready to die. Jews throughout history have literally put themselves through martyrdom, through torture, through just so that they said they're not ready to give up their connection with their Jewish identity. Something is so deep, something that's their essential connection with God that they don't touch it. You go there, I'm ready to die for the cause. Don't, I will not do that. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, there's a story with terrible story, Daniel Pearl. You remember that story? No one?
The name rings a bell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Killed
Daniel
in
Pearl.
Iraq.
Yeah, it was Iraq,
Torture.
Pakistan. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's exactly.
Pakistan, you're right, Pakistan.
So he was a Wall Street Journal reporter, and he was covering whatever was going on there with this was Islamic State, Al Qaeda, right?
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden, yeah, it was, yeah, and this was like basically they got hold of him, they captured him, and this was the times where they were filming the decapitations on things, right? They discovered that the sensation of social media and using it for their causes. So Daniel Pearl, on the film, you can see him saying this. His last words. He says, "I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. My mother is a Jew. My father is a Jew." And those were his last words of his life. And then he actually said, "My grandfather built a city in Israel, or gave us a city in Israel, until today is a street named after him, Bnei Brak, Chaim Pearl." The last words of the guy's name, the guy's life. And they chopped off his head. Now, Daniel Pearl himself was not a religious man at all. He wasn't married to a Jewish woman. He wasn't religious in the slightest. But there was a moment here, which I think, you look back in Jewish history, there's countless episodes of Jews giving up their lives for their Jewishness, where there was either the sword or your faith. Either you convert or you die. Spanish, whatever it was. And Jews, time and time again, even extremely secular Jews, even Jews who outwardly weren't expressing their Judaism, they were not ready to give, they gave up their lives. This is, by the way, there's two books. There's a beautiful book, I Am a Jew, which was based on the last words of Daniel Pearl, with Jewish personalities around the world, describe them saying what it means being a Jew to them. But this was so unexpected. Daniel Pearl suddenly talking about, "I'm a Jew, my blood is my fault." Like, what? Where? What? How? Yeah. You said something? No. Victoria, you asked something? No.
No.
The connection was unstable. What was it saying?
Consent.
You guys are hearing us okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I saw something in the middle there. Okay, so what are we? Why is this all happening? Let's take a look in text 4. What is actually the inner workings of going on within the soul of a Jew when something like that happens? Why in the world would someone who's not religious, quote unquote, give up their lives for his Jewish identity? Text 4. Victoria, you want to read for us?
Sure. Can you hear me well? Yep. Okay. Even for the person who has only a limited understanding of God's greatness and does not have sufficient emotional capacity to generate through contemplation and understanding of the awe and love he should feel for God, it is still a very near thing for him to guard and to practice all the commandments of the Torah, as well as the study of Torah, by accessing the hidden love already present in the heart of all Jews, bequeathed to us from our patriarchs.
Okay, so the Alter Rebbe is telling us, you want to know what's happening here? You have something imprinted on your DNA. It's something you didn't earn. You didn't work on this through meditation or something like that. You have it as something in your genes based on the fact from your ancestors and their service of God, your patriarchs, the matriarchs. This is called, you have a hidden love. Like he calls it, what does he call it? What is it? It's the hidden love already present, hidden love for God. There's something by the nature of the fact you have a soul, you have a hidden love towards God that's hidden. Why is it called hidden? Because it's usually hidden. You don't experience this love. This love is latent. It's not something that normally expresses itself. It's not something you normally feel. But there will be times in your life when you're pushed against the wall and this hidden light will be exposed. Take a look at text 5. Who are we up to? Amy, you want to read?
Sure. Therefore, generally speaking, even the most careless sinners among Israel sacrifice their lives for the sanctity of Hashem's name and suffer harsh torture rather than deny Hashem's unity. even if they are unlearned and ignorant of Hashem's greatness. Their self-sacrifice does not result from any knowledge or contemplation of Hashem, but rather without any reason or rational argument whatsoever.
Okay. So this is the Alter Rebbe describing to us. He's saying basically, we have within us something which is a hidden love. She calls it a hidden love, which that what does not want to. If it comes to that point, that won't. It's so deep in your identity. It says, "I'd rather die. I don't want to break off my connection. I don't want to break off my connection with God. For me, if I am breaking off my connection at that level, then my whole life is worthless." It's like in the moment of incredible deep truth, where a person's deepest truth is revealed. What is life for you? What is your deepest identity? And a person will say, "I'm ready to give up my life. Instead, I'm ready to sacrifice my life." And this is something that Jews throughout history have. This is a fact that, and I think in modern times, I think Daniel personally is someone we actually saw that this wasn't something which was coming from religious experience. This was not religious experience at all. There was no religious experience. This was something that would touch so deep that at a certain moment there was something deep, deep within, latent. The Alter Rebbe called it the hidden love, which is somehow revealed. Anyone? Are you guys with me? Any questions? Does this resonate with you? Can you appreciate this? Yes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you a very simple question. If you're ready to give up your life for God, if a person has the choice, you're going to be killed for your Jewish identity. You are given a choice, convert or die, and you're ready to die. Well, God forbid no one should. Why? Hashem says, maybe don't have that piece of, I don't know what, non-kosher schnitzel. No, that, you know what I mean? How does it make any sense? I'm ready to give up my life, but when it comes to things that like simple stuff, that I'm not ready to. No? Anyone? I think the answer is pretty obvious, but what do you think, David? What's going on? Why the difference?
I think giving up your life is very theoretical, extreme case. But to those choices of kosher food versus non-kosher food, that's daily. So it's much easier to say I'm willing to give up my life. I mean, in Daniel Pearl's case, that's a whole different story. But in our lives, it's a very extreme scenario. I might think that I'm willing to give up my life, but that's still a very theoretical scenario.
So wait a second. Hold on a second. Are you telling me that it's only theory, but if it came to practice, you wouldn't do it?
I don't know. I've never been there. So
right. Please God, you should never be there. But the idea is what we've just spoken about. Is it something which is it's something which we've seen, and if people are pushed, that Jews give up their lives and are ready to give up their lives. So yes, it's not only theoretical, it's practical. People are ready to give up their lives for God. If it comes to the point of either my connection to God or my living, people have been ready. That moment of truth, they've said, take my life. And I'm saying the Holocaust, there's numerous stories of people who were, whatever it was, they were ready to, they wouldn't sever their connection, even to save their lives. They were saying, no, my identity as a Jew, I'm not ready to do that. Yeah? And therefore I'm saying it's not just a question of practical and theoretical, because we're talking about it's practical. So what you're touching on something. What's the difference?
Then maybe it's just the significance of it. When
What do
you're
you
in
mean?
front of a very big decision, a very big event, there's like another level of strength,
Right.
of depth
Right.
that comes out. But when
Right.
it's on a daily basis, mundane, you're thinking, it's okay.
Beautiful. Absolutely. The same thing what Nathaniel said. Ultimately, it goes to, we're talking about when a person experiences that threat, that threat to their connection to God, ultimately, the deepest place, they're ready to give up their lives. When I am standing in work that's getting 4 o'clock in a winter afternoon, and I know that Shabbos is coming, do I feel right now this is a do or die moment? You know what I mean? I don't see this as being the ultimate, the all end. My relationship with God will be completely severed because of the fact that I stayed in work. Shabbos, okay. There's many Jews who don't keep Shabbos. Don't keep Shabbos. Someone will tell me convert or that. There's no question, man. But right? Okay. So ultimately, like you said in the panel before, we all have a line that we don't cross. We all have a line that we say, at this point, there's nothing to talk about. This point is non-negotiable. You go there and I'm all in. Less than that, whatever, we'll talk about. For one person, maybe kosher, they will never. I won't eat. I'll go on a hunger strike. I'm gonna almost die because I don't want to put kosher in, non-kosher. Okay. The other person will, say, kosher. But there's other things that, whether it's like, sometimes it's parents where they say, do whatever you want, marry Jewish. That's the line. You don't dare come home, tell their children with someone who's not Jewish. You better make sure you marry Jewish. That's their line. What about when their daughter wants to go on the prom with a non-Jewish guy? That's okay. Go dance prom with you. Not. But getting married, that's their line. They draw from themselves, right? We're all familiar with such a approach. Hold on a sec. Now, the question that we're trying to appreciate here is, I'm reading my handwriting today. The question we're trying to appreciate is like this. We have discovered that there will be times that all of us have a line. Is that line rational? Is it a rational point? We said no, it's something in us. It's not irrational. It's not based on contemplation. It's something that we have imprinted on us, which will be our point of saying we're going to give everything at this point. We're not ready to give in past this point. Right? The question is, how do you bring that to a place where every mitzvah we recognize and say, hold on a second. My connection with God is being called into question right now. Following? Let's just summarize where we're up to, and I have to explain a little bit further. Okay. What we're up to again is we discussed the concept of that ultimately we are trying to control our behaviors, and in order to do that, we have to bring our insides on board also. Long solution. What was the long solution? The long way. What was the long way?
Focus on thoughts to generate feelings.
Good. Contemplation, thoughts, creating new feelings. Short way, tell ourselves, I would rather die than give up my connection with God. And because of that, if I was ready to die to give up my connection with God, shouldn't I be ready to do this for God or that for God and get up from my bed and go to shul, or get up from my bed and I don't know, help someone? I'm ready to die for God. Something small for God. But we all know what's the problem. There's no non-Jew or whoever it is, standing with a sword saying, you do this or you die. That's the problem. We don't feel that. We don't feel that threat. We don't feel the mother, if she thinks her purse is under the car, she's not going to feel that enormous surge of spiritual adrenaline to go and lift the adrenaline to lift the car. The same thing is here. If we looked at every single situation, getting out of bed right now was the same kind of weight as the guy threatening me with saying, God forbid, you do this, give up your connection, or you die. Right? And there's no question, we would say, kill me, I'm not interested in living if that's the case. We don't feel that. It's like, we don't feel any, we're lying in bed, just, it's chill. No one's killing each other, just relax. I don't have to go to shul right now. Things are okay. You know what I mean? So the short way we're trying to say, the Alter Rebbe is telling us, saying, if you're ready to do and you're ready to give up your life for God, why shouldn't you be able to ready to do the small things for God? And we're saying, well, the reason I'm ready to give up my life for God is because at that moment where I'm revealing my deepest truth, my deepest connection with God, and I'm not ready to give that up. But on a regular day-to-day, I don't feel that that's where it's touching, right? Therefore, I'm not ready to go that far. Yeah? Okay. So we're trying to see, how can we bridge the gap from point A to point B? How can we say, hold on, point A, this point of ready to do or die kind of point, to the point of every mitzvah. Every mitzvah is in effect, somehow, can we experience that do or die sensation? That spiritual adrenaline rush. Now, let's take a look at text 6. Because we really need to understand and appreciate the dynamics of what a mitzvah is. Text 6. Who are we up to? Amy just read. Lubov, go for it.
The first two commandments in the Decalogue, I am the Lord.
You know what the Decalogue is?
Yes,
10 commandments.
10
10 commandments, yeah.
I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods, comprise the entire Torah. The commandment, I am God, contains all the 248 positive precepts, while the commandment, you shall have no other gods, contains all the 365 prohibitive commandments.
Okay. How many mitzvahs are there in the Torah?
613.
613. How does that split up? So here, Tanya is teaching us chapter 20, that actually within the first two of the 10 commandments, you have the entire Torah summarized. I am the Lord your God is effectively all the 248 do's of Judaism. All you shall have no other gods is effectively all that the don'ts of Judaism. Right? And that's how it splits up. There's 248 do's and 365 don'ts in the mitzvahs, totaling 613. Now, this is something very powerful, actually. The Tanya is teaching us that ultimately every do of Judaism is ultimately the same expression of I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God. Every don't of Judaism is effectively expressing the same idea of no other gods. What are we saying? Let's imagine a relationship. That sounds a little bit intense, right? So let's just bring this home. Let's imagine a relationship, a marriage, okay? Imagine you, a husband and wife are married, and the husband says, Big stuff, that stuff I'm going to make sure to do. I won't do any big betrayals to my spouse. But small betrayals, you know what I mean? We're going to get divorced over that? We won't get divorced over that. So that stuff I can do. How healthy does this relationship sound to you? It sounds like a good marriage? No, doesn't sound like a good marriage, right? Why? Because a marriage is a commitment to each other. A marriage, kind of approaching it like a business deal. You're gonna get divorced of, what is going on here? You're married, you're committed to each other. Who cares if you're gonna get divorced over it or not? You care about each other? You want to fulfill the will of the other person? Irrelevant of if it's a big betrayal or a bad betrayal, you shouldn't be doing things which are going to be a contradiction to their relationship. Yeah? And ultimately, the moment we realize that a relationship is what we're talking about here, we're talking about a mitzvah is all about our relationship with God, then no betrayal is acceptable. The Tanya is telling us in the short way that what we're talking about here, we're in a relationship. And in this relationship, drawing this arbitrary line and saying, this is, I do things for God, but I don't have to go take it that far. Or, I'll do things for God, but in this fact, what I mean? He'll manage without me doing what he wants me to. And he says, hold on a second. If this is a relationship, then the whole approach of that kind has no place. No betrayal is acceptable. That's not for me to decide, this is what I'm going to keep and this is what I'm going to reject. Whether I understand it or not, whether I feel it or not, if it's important to the other partner in the relationship, it's going to be important to me. And the same thing is within our relationship with God. And right now, I have to ask myself, I'm doing this thing right now in the relationship. Am I connecting through doing this thing in the relationship? Are we drawing closer? Or right now I'm disconnected? It's like the husband and the wife, they go out to some social event and the husband's having a conversation, maybe not so appropriately with another woman. And his wife challenges him at the end of the evening. He says, what do you mean? I was just talking. We were just talking. Hold on a second. You know what I mean? That just talking. That moment when you're speaking to that person, that other woman, maybe not so appropriately for a married man. Are you stepping into your marriage right now, or are you stepping out of your marriage right now? Is that conversation belonging in this commitment called marriage to your spouse? And recognizing, Tanya is teaching us that recognizing every decision, each decision we make is ultimately, we go asking ourselves in this moment, am I connecting or am I disconnecting? And if I recognize it like that, the same way I would never give up I would be ready to die because I don't want to break off this relationship. This whole arbitrary line where I enter into this whole kind of made up, drawing things and say, this is okay and this is not okay. Now this is affecting the relationship, but this is not, this is okay. That's got no place. And what does that call forth? It calls forth the same thing. The fact that I don't have the fact that I don't have kind of God's the person threatening my identity right now. That's a superficial experience of the same thing that happens to us from at least from one angle every time I am doing something which is in contradiction to my relationship. Well, that's pretty wild. We all know the Jewish prayer, the fundamental Jewish prayer, Shema, right? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Jews, that was what they died saying. That's what they died as Jews, and they died sometimes for saying. God is one. What is that? It's such a fundamental Jewish prayer saying God is one. I'm saying like, whoa, God is one. Okay, and there's not multiple gods. Is that really what the power of Shema is? What's the power of Shema? What does it mean God is one? What does that mean?
Everything.
It's everything. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad means God is everything. Absolutely. It's about recognizing that my entire existence is my relationship with God. That everything that exists is an outcome. And therefore, one of the reasons we cover our eyes actually when we say Shema is because we can kind of get carried away with, hold on a second, God's not everything. Look, there's this, there's that, there's all these wonderful things. We cover our eyes and say, hold on a second, that's all. The world's all an expression of God. It's not a contradiction to God being everything. God's in everything. The whole world's an expression of God. It's not that there's God and then there's my life. And there's this and there's that. It's about bringing into our realization fundamental Jewish prayer is saying God is everything. God is my life. God is the deepest part of who I am, etc., etc. That's the Shema. So if mitzvahs are all about, okay, check boxes, okay, I'm listening or I'm not listening, then the whole thing doesn't begin. But if every time I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm stepping into Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, I'm stepping into that. And every time I'm doing something opposite of God's will, I'm stepping out of that. I'm effectively saying, God, you exist, but this space you don't exist. That's effectively what I'm saying. What am I doing wrong? Suddenly, the Tanya is telling us the short way is what ultimately is we're reframing what it means to have a relationship with God. And we're appreciating that the same way, if I would, God forbid, be threatened with death, I'd be ready to sacrifice my life. Along the same lines, that should be the reaction to every single time a person is threatened. A person is ready to step out of the relationship. That is touching a deep part. A person will not, I do not want to be disconnected. That's what every mitzvah is saying. Every time a person has a chance to do something not right, I don't want to be disconnected. I don't want to be disconnected. And what is he doing? Ultimately, what that means is that every mitzvah is a trigger to every time I have a chance to feel inside that sense of what do I want to do? What's that? So I can feel now I want to do something wrong. I'm feeling that desire to, I don't know, speak horrible about something. And then I stop and I say, hold on a second. You know what's going to happen? That same kind of place where I get kvetched, I get like squeezed, and I said, what? I'm stepping out of the relationship right now. I would never do that. If it was so obvious that I was stepping out, I would never do that. That's a part in us that we always retain. That connection is always there. If we can tap into that deep place on a regular basis, that's kind of a feelings which already exist, and that's a stop mechanism. That's about bringing our inners to a place which will be in sync with our actions, because when we recognize that within ourselves, we ultimately, if we're pushed against the wall, we will not want to do this. This is what I truly want. I don't want to. And we can tap into that and recognize and tap into, hold on a second, this is compromising my relation. I step back. This is not, because this is ultimately, I feel that adrenaline. I feel that kick of like, whoa, no way. I can't do that. You know, this is against who I am. So in a certain sense, like you comes just an example. I'm saying it comes to lighting Shabbos candles on time, and a person we rational, okay, whatever. I have to get out. I have to using a lot of examples of Shabbos candles. I have to get out. I have to break my routine. Horrible. I can't stand this. I've had enough. 1 week I'll do it. I'll light on time. The next week I'll do it. I'll light on time. The next third week is like, yalla. I'll light when I get home from work. What's this business of lighting Shabbos candles on time when Shabbos comes in? Okay. So the short way is saying, hold on a second. Yeah, you do that, but so you realize what's going on? This is like hectic stuff. You're right now. You're this decision, this arbitrary line that you've made of like, this is what I do and this is what I do, but this I'll never do. It's no place. This is in a certain aspect. The mitzvahs are all the deepest expression of it's none or this is none. And if it's on, and I will always want to keep those channels on because I'll never be prepared to give up the channel of the relationship. And I'll never close that door and I'll always leave that door open, and it will affect how I approach even every single action that's something else. Okay. So if we want to talk about I'm not going to go into all the texts here. Let's just take one moment to look at one of the texts. Let's take a look at text 13, page 56. Adam, go for it.
Triggering instinct. At any time and moment, a person can arouse his love of the one God that is undoubtedly latent in his heart. This is the meaning of "it is near to you in your heart," ever in Deuteronomy 30:14. This love also contains an aspect of fear. That is, the dread of being separated from God's unity and oneness, even if it means sacrificing his life without any reasonable logic. But purely out of one's godly nature, surely it is far easier to subdue one's appetites and to endure the suffering of death. Yet, he would rarely do that if need be. He will thus be moved to obey God's will, even when it concerns a minor rabbinic prohibition, since at the time that he does the forbidden act, he becomes separated from God's unity just as much as through actual idolatry. Tanya, chapter 25.
Want to read the next one, text 14? Let's read it. Adam, you want to continue? That's all on the negative stuff. Likewise,
in the category of doing good, he will be able to strengthen himself like a lion with might and determination of heart against the evil nature which weighs down his body. It is very easy for a person to resist and subjugate his nature when he considers that doing so is much less painful than enduring the pains of death. May God preserve us. Yet, he would lovingly and willingly have accepted the pain of death, may God preserve us, so as not to be separated from God's unity and oneness, even for a moment, by an act of idolatry. God forbid. Certainly, then, he ought to lovingly and willingly accept any inconvenience or burden in order to bind himself to God with an eternal bond. Tanya, chapter 25.
okay, thank you. So let's just summarize what we covered tonight, and then we'll just talk about a little homework for the weekend. We spoke about ultimately what we learned last week. Controlling, bringing ourselves to a place where our behaviors are perfect, which is the service of the Beinoni, which is where we can all strive to be. We're looking to be, getting our internals all right is never going to happen. We've got an animal soul, we've got a godly soul, we're always going to be in conflict. But we've got the choice to always make the right choice in behavior. That's within our ability. However, if we leave it at that, that's untenable. We're going to fall at something. We have to bring ourselves to the table. We have to be feeling those things, not just doing those things. We have to bring some of our insides in sync with some of our outsides. Otherwise we're going to sink. So we have to sink, so we shouldn't sink. Yeah? And therefore, we discovered two ways. The first way is the long way. The long way means develop feelings, meditate, take some time to think about. If you spend time just thinking about the things that, what your relationship with God means, and therefore why it's something meaningful for you, that will develop, you'll develop an appreciation within yourself to do more things for God. The same way, I actually saw, I was reading something this week, as just an interesting book, and she says that there was a study shown that when it came to relationships, husbands and wives tend to see when each partner is not doing the right thing. We always see straight away, but we don't notice when the person is doing the right thing. And therefore, it was an activity to improve marriages. And some psychologists said, keep a diary of doing good things where you see that the one's actually doing something good for you, right? So straight away, just by monitoring, just by thinking, noticing those things, straight away, they noticed that the marriages were improved hugely, just by that, from that. This is it's a book about habits, and monitoring is a big part of that. Why? Because when you monitor, you're paying attention. When you're thinking about it, straight away it changes how you're feeling about it. That's the long way. The long way is beautiful. The long way is we're going to develop a feeling, we're going to develop a relationship. But it takes time, it takes effort, it's very, change at that level is very powerful, because the more I feel, the more I appreciate, it's very powerful how my insights are really there. I'm really feeling, I'm really appreciating. But at the same time, it's not always easy to get there, and it takes a long time to develop those feelings, etc. Then we discovered a short way. The short way, the Tanya is effectively a hack. The hack is basically saying, hold on a second. Is there a point at which you would say, there's no question, I want to do the right thing? There's absolutely. Every one of us has that point. And therefore, recognize that every time you're faced with a conflict and you're given the choice of doing the right thing or not doing the right thing, or doing something beautiful or not being, and you recognize that it's effectively the same thing as that point, that you would never go past that critical point of your spiritual adrenaline rush, you recognize it's one and the same, that will be bringing yourself, and I will be ready to stop myself. I'll be ready to put myself to do something, because that's the whole relationship depends. So homework for the week ahead is, let's play this out within our week. We're going to continue doing the service of the Beinoni, which is we're controlling our thoughts, we're controlling our speech, we're controlling our actions. And we're only allowing those garments to be garments of the soul to express our godly soul. They're not expressing our selfish, narcissistic self. It's expressing the part of ourselves which is more connected to why am I here, what's my purpose, and what am I needed for, not what I need, which is a radically different way of thinking about things. That's where I'm going with my thought, speech, and action. What am I needed for, not what I need. Getting into that space. But it's a struggle, it's hard. So 2 things we're going to try. Think thoughts, which are going to help us the long way. Develop feelings for it. And the short way, we're going to think to ourselves, my whole Judaism, my whole relationship with the God rides right now at this moment. The whole thing rides on this. tap into that, see how that goes. Report back next week, and we then will have discovered a new problem, which we're going to have to approach the Alter Rebbe to address us in our fourth audience with him. Come next week, lesson 4. Thank you all for joining. Great
Thank
to see
you.
Thank
all.
you. Thank you so much.
Everyone, thanks.
Laila Tov.
Have a great
I love
week.
love.
Yeah, and some of you, I know we'll see you Shabbat, please God. So looking forward. Whoever's not going to be with us, have a beautiful Shabbat, wherever you may be in the world.
Thank you.
Indeed, looking forward. Bye.
And I know you want to turn off. God bless. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine.